Happy Thursday, everyone. Alan Weber here from the Mayor's Office on a beautiful Thursday morning in Santa Fe. There's a lot to talk about. COVID, voting, the state of our city, and how we move forward after Monday's vandalism attack on the obelisk, last night's vandalism across the Martyr. A lot to talk about, and I'm going to take it slow, and I'm going to talk very clearly to people in our community, because we've got a lot of work to do together. Item number one, let's go back to COVID-19. This is today's paper. This is a chart of our COVID cases statewide. Daily cases reported in New Mexico. We're looking at a wildfire that's raging. For this county of Santa Fe, yesterday we had 17 cases. The day before that we had 41 cases. The day before that we had 19 cases. Our 7-day average is now at 19.1 cases. Now, I think it's clear that we are in deep trouble. These are serious problems. This is not just statistics. These are not just numbers. These are people in our community who are sick. And it is spreading. It is out of control. And I think the challenge for all of us is to decide how we want to deal with it. The governor will have a press conference this afternoon. She's going to probably announce some more restrictions because this can't continue. But, even though I get an email deluge every day asking me as mayor what I'm going to do, what the city's going to do to stop COVID from spreading, I'm pretty much limited to a few answers. Number one, everybody should wear a face mask. Let's get back into the practice of being very, very serious and committed and disciplined. Wear a face mask when you go out. Wash your hands before you go out. Wash your hands when you come back. Use hand sanitizer. Practice social distancing. These are the things that we know work. When we look at our chart as a state, when this first hit, we really had discipline. We were focused and we had our eyes on keeping each other safe. It was a community responsibility. The governor, the city council, different jurisdictions, we took action. We voted a face mask ordinance. We made hand sanitizer available. We created the Santa Fe Promise. All of that was done to keep people safe, and now we are in deep trouble. So it's up to all of us. It's up to every single person who is listening or watching to do your part. Step up and take responsibility with our whole community to stop the spread of COVID-19. Until we stop the spread of COVID-19, there is virtually nothing else we can do to bring back our economy, to heal our community, to really make it through successfully as a group, as a team, as a community, all of these very difficult and challenging issues that we confront. But let's face it, we are confronting, as a country, a lot of tough issues. COVID changes everything. It puts people's lives at risk. It also puts people's livelihoods at risk. There are significant financial and human challenges in our city. The city council last night approved some measures to get some emergency support for people in our city who need help paying the rent, putting groceries on the table. This is as serious as I've ever seen it get in our country, as a whole nation. If it isn't COVID-19, it's the economic backlash and after effect. If it isn't that, it's the call for social justice and the effort to come to terms with years and years, decades, if not centuries, of injustice. And then, of course, we've got climate change. All of that is on the plate at the same time. We can only do what we can do as Santa Fe, but we can do as Santa Fe what we know how to do best, and that's to come together and to work as a community. There is an enormous amount of anger and stress and just a sense of outrage over being in such hard times. These are hard times. Hard times require hard work to get out of them. And we do that only if we do it together. If we remember the fundamental kindnesses and the fundamental decency of our community and lean back on those values. COVID-19, we've got to get back to work stopping the spread. Voting. Voting has started. You can vote early. You can still ask for and receive an absentee ballot online until Tuesday, October the 20th, until 5 p.m. There is still in-person same-day voter registration at the county's clerk's office until Saturday, October 31st. Voting in person has begun at the Community Convention Center, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. There are lines. It can take 45 minutes to an hour, but the process is orderly, and if you maintain social distance, wear a mask, you can do it safely. This election is obviously crucial for all of us. Doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, decline to state, Green Party, Independent, it doesn't matter. This is a test of democracy right now. It is a test of the best of us, or the choice we make to go apart and lose track of what connects us. Democracy has to be a participation activity. It's not a spectator sport. It's an activity. It's a commitment, a responsibility. It's a requirement to keep our community working together, solving problems, addressing needs, having a heart, having a soul, having a sense of commitment to each other. I want to talk about the census. I've talked about it every week. It's the last day. Another headline in the newspaper: Census ends today. Officials worry. There are people in our country who do not want you to be counted. They do not want your voice to be heard. I don't understand it. I can't explain it. But there are people who believe that's better for our country if you don't get counted. I believe everybody counts. I believe you need to be counted. You can do it today. You can absolutely still go to My 2020 Census and get your census filled out. Everyone who fills out a census does it anonymously and safely. So it is not something where you compromise your identity, but it brings back money to New Mexico. Go to the web, My 2020 Census. Get yourself counted. It is absolutely essential. It makes a huge difference. And it will either end today with more of us being counted, or those who want to stop the count will succeed in reducing the accuracy, the fullness, the sense of commitment and engagement. It is another part of democracy. This census, this approach to the census is even in our Constitution. You are entitled to be heard. You are entitled to be counted. Please go to the census website and do it today. It is the last day. We have hunger in our community. We have people who are struggling to make ends meet. We have people who are hard pressed to put food on the table. Thank you to the Food Depot, our friends there, our volunteers, Sherry Hooper and her team. There is a Food Depot distribution today from 7 to 9. It will run at 1222 Silo Road. It's underway. It's probably almost done by now, but there'll be another one. The Food Depot is continuing to support people in our community who are hungry. If you want to help the Food Depot, give them a contribution. Send them some money so they can go back out and stock back up to make sure nobody in Santa Fe goes hungry, goes without. In the midst of this, city government continues to try to provide the best services we possibly can under very tough circumstances. If you see a city worker out in the field doing their job, thank them. Tell them you appreciate it. You know they are trying very hard to pick up the trash, to make sure the water is clean and safe, to make sure that we have a safe community. We have some statistics on Operation Fall Blitz that the police have been running October 5 through 9, simply to try to make sure our streets are safe. It's, again, something we take for granted on a day-to-day basis that we should not take for granted. These are the things that keep our city functioning, keep us working together, keep us handling the day-to-day life in Santa Fe. So please remember to thank your city workers, thank your friends and neighbors for helping each other. Adopt an attitude of kindness. Love thy neighbor as thyself. We are the city of faith. We need to practice that faith. And that teaching of the golden rule cuts across all faiths and ties us all together. I need to address what happened on the plaza on Monday and where we go from here. It was Indigenous Peoples Day, and there was a act of violence from a small group of individuals who took the law into their own hands. It doesn't matter whether you like the obelisk, don't like the obelisk, you object to the history of racism, you object to the centuries of violence visited in northern New Mexico. It's part of our history. It's who we are, and we have to face it. We have to deal with it. We have to accept it. We have to talk about it. We have to address each other with respect and with shared values. There is no place for violence in Santa Fe. We spent the whole summer with peaceful demonstrations while other cities around the country went up in flames, from Portland to Seattle to Los Angeles, San Francisco, to Denver, where an individual was killed just a few days ago in a demonstration and a counter demonstration, to Albuquerque, where an individual was shot over a demonstration involving a statue. All summer long, we had peaceful demonstrations. It was from all parts of our community. We have a diverse political and philosophical base in Santa Fe. We embrace all traditions. It's part of what makes our city so special. We had people from Black Lives Matter. We had people from Cowboys for Trump. We're the state capitol. We had the militia show up with weapons, and everyone stayed calm. Everyone stayed together. Everyone embraced peace. And on Monday, we lost that. And we had violence. Thankfully, no one was shot, no one was killed. Thankfully, no one was injured seriously. 2 officers were injured trying to stop the violence from happening on the plaza. They were doing their job. Other officers on the ground decided in their command role that it was safer for the community, for the police to withdraw and come back later than to stand in there and exchange blows and maybe see the escalation of a serious problem, as we've seen in other communities. We've experienced all summer long a debate about what the role of the police is and the need to defund the police, the need in some cities to do away with the police. Our police chose to follow their policy and to follow their protocols. You can look in hindsight and say we wish it had been different, but the fact is that the demolition of the obelisk proceeded. Then last night there was more vandalism. There is a different virus in America right now, and it's a virus of anger and of people taking the law into their own hands. We need to stop that virus as well. To people who want to take the law into their own hands, I would say to you, one version, one form of taking the law into your own hands is practicing civil disobedience. I grew up in the 60s when Martin Luther King and leaders of the African American community took on the chore of addressing systemic racism and sat in at lunch counters in Selma, Alabama, practiced peaceful resistance to the racial discrimination that was going on then and still goes on in America. They didn't tear down buildings or obelisks. They addressed the issue with courage. They didn't spray paint the lunch counters. They sat in at them, were arrested for their civil disobedience, and took their case to the soul of America, which is why we ended up with a Voting Rights Act getting passed, which is why we have seen a steady, slow, but steady process toward racial justice and social justice in America. Change is hard. Change is the hardest thing to affect. Hard things are hard, and change is the hardest. There is no shortcut to creating change in Santa Fe or in America. It takes hard work. It takes people sitting down and looking each other in the eye and talking honestly and candidly with each other, not shouting and screaming, not taking the law into their own hands, but having meetings, weekly meetings, to talk about how they feel and where their values intersect and overlap. It takes change work. It takes going into schools. It takes rewriting curriculums. It takes community organizing. It takes voting so that your voice is heard. It takes filling out the census so that your voice is heard. It doesn't happen through lawlessness. It happens through hard, patient, tough work. And that's the work that we've been trying to effect in Santa Fe well before I became mayor. It goes back previous administrations who wanted to engage with our community about the most serious issues that we need to deal with: poverty, injustice, inequality, discrimination, bias, anti-Semitism, gender discrimination. These are the issues that we need to talk about now. But we don't do it by screaming at each other, and we don't do it by giving rage and outrage the only voice in our city. The most important voice in our city is the voice of compassion, the voice of patience, the voice of understanding. Make no mistake, we will pursue the law when the law is broken. The law will be enforced. We will find people who are violating city codes or federal or state laws, and we'll do our best to make sure that the law is enforced. If you broke the law because you thought you were taking the moral high ground, I would encourage you to come make your case in court and take that issue to the people of Santa Fe. That's what Martin Luther King and his followers did. They took their case to the soul of America. We, as people who abide by the law but believe in change, think we can do both. We believe profoundly that change is possible, that positive change is ultimately where we want to head as a community, as a state, and as a country. The arc of justice is the arc we are riding and counting on and depending on each other to pursue. Now, 2 years ago, there was a proclamation signed by the president of the Caballeros, by the past president of the Caballeros, by the president of the Fiesta Council, the chairman of the All Pueblo Council of Governors, the mayor of Santa Fe, and the Archbishop of Santa Fe. And it said, "We acknowledge the past and its trauma, tragedy, and sorrow. We understand its legacy in the present. We acknowledge wounds older and deeper than any on this continent. Wounds older and deeper than any on this continent. On behalf of those from the past who cannot ask forgiveness, we do so now." It went on to say, "We also acknowledge the remarkable depth of wisdom and resiliency that comes from struggle. We share in our grief. We share in our strength. We stand together for our children, guided by our sacred duty to know and learn from the past, to acknowledge the present, and to envision a future in which all will thrive. We join together to make a new offering of peace, and resolve to move forward together. We come clothed in gratitude for the gifts of our Creator. Let us begin our walk here as stewards of something greater than ourselves. Let us cultivate a new era for Santa Fe, having listened to and learned from each other, having acknowledged difficult truths, having seen the possibility of a future based on harmony and love. We offer these as promises and commit to our children to choose the right path today so that in the future they may call us good ancestors. That proclamation is alive. That proclamation is the chart to our future. It represents the way in which we heal old wounds and forge new possibilities. There will be a committee formed to take on that work, but we cannot wait for that committee to be formed. That work starts now. It starts when we talk to our neighbors. It starts when we ask forgiveness of each other. It starts when we lower our voices, reduce our anger, practice humility, eliminate bias in our own hearts, and look to each other as friends and neighbors. When we disagree, we do so with respect. When we come together, we do so with love. That's where we are in Santa Fe today. We are the city of Holy Faith. We need to practice that now, more than ever, with all of these challenges rising around us. COVID-19, financial challenges for our friends and neighbors, people without food, people without rent, people at risk of losing their homes, children unable to go to school in the ways they are accustomed to, parents stretched thin in their ability to both go to work and help educate their kids. We need to hold together. We need to hold the center of Santa Fe. And the center of Santa Fe is a loving heart and a sense of compassion, respect, and shared values. So please join me. Become a practitioner of peace. Practice love. Practice forgiveness. Let go of individual anger and embrace communal respect, communal love, communal compassion. Let's help each other make it through these hard times so that when we get through them, we look back and we say, through the hardest of days, Santa Fe stood united, worked together, and maintained a sense of love for each other. Thank you very much.